bọ́jọ́ bá pẹ́ títí ọjọ́ àpín o bọ́nà bá jìnnà jìnnà àdópin o àti sáré àdópin aré àmàtí jìyà àdópin ìyà o àti sunsun àti kan ògiri ó má di gbẹ̀yìn kọ́ lọ́tẹ̀ ìmọ̀ o bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o.
ilé òní gbóná kárẹ́nu omi kọ́lé ayé òní kóró kálọ̀ dífá ọ̀run o láyé náà la ó wà títà ó fi ṣẹ́gun lójú àwọn ọlọ́tẹ̀ ẹkún akọjá òkùnkùn ajímọ́lẹ̀ fáwa ọmọ Yorùbá ọjọ́ ayọ̀ súnmọ́lé o.
Ó di láéláé pọ́npá ó mà di láéláé pọ́npá Yorùbá ò ní dọ̀bálẹ̀ ẹ̀fẹ́ nìkan ó di gbẹ̀yìn kọ́ lọ́tẹ̀ ìmọ̀ o.
yé ẹ dìde dìde bí ológun ẹ bá jàgà sílẹ̀ o ẹ rántí àtọmọdọ́mọ kò ní sún wa kò ní rẹ̀ wá bá ó fi ṣẹ́gun tẹni tó dé ó sàn ju ẹni tirẹ̀ ń bọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ò ní ní dúró kẹ́dúró gbọ̀n kẹ́dúró gbọ̀n kẹ́dúró gbọ̀n 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 àtùpàgbé oníkànnì o bí ẹ bá sùn ẹ gbé ọjọ́ ayọ̀ súnmọ́lé o.
bí a bá kú tí a bá jí a ó mẹ́ni rè fẹ́ràn ẹni bá ṣàìsàn wò ni yóò lè mọyì àlàáfíà bí a bá ṣaláìní ká tó wá ní a ó mọyì ìgbà bá ń fojoojúmọ́ jẹun ata ó dífá fún Yorùbá tí í ṣe ọmọ Odùduwà bàbá mi òkè gàgàgà tí í ṣe lépè lẹ́yìn aṣòótọ́ Ọ̀yọ́ Ìbàdàn Oǹdó Ìjẹ̀ṣà Ilé Ifẹ̀ o.
wá ohùn alóore Odùduwà ló ń pè.
Àkúrẹ́ Ọ̀wọ̀ Ìkàrẹ́ Ẹ̀yìn Èkìtì ẹ gbóhùn Ìgbé o.
wá ohùn alóore Odùduwà ló ń pè.
Ìbàràpá Ilé Ẹ̀gbádò Ẹ̀yìn Ọ̀ṣun ẹ gbóhùn Ìgbé o.
wá ohùn alóore Odùduwà ló ń pè.
Ẹ̀yin Ìjẹ̀bú ọmọ Àlárẹ̀ o ẹ̀yin Ẹ̀gbá ọmọ Lísàbí.
wá ohùn alóore Odùduwà ló ń pè o ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá ọjọ́ ayọ̀ súnmọ́lé o.
lé apá kan mo support kí a rí foreign aid kí wọ́n wá help wa provided tó bá yẹ pé tán bá wá tán help wa tán wá padà sílùú wọn kì í ṣe pọ́n máa colonize wa it's high time kí irú ẹ̀ ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣe àwọn tán wà ń jọba ẹ̀ conspirator ni wọ́n ló pọ̀ nínú wọn conspirators ló pọ̀ nínú wọn that is why tó fi jẹ́ pé ìjọba ò lè kápá àwọn Fúlàní ẹ̀ torí àwọn tó ń jọ ń jókòó ṣe meeting pẹ̀lú ìjọba ara wọn ni ìlú sẹ́nẹ́tọ̀ yìí náà sì òun náà wà náà tọ́jọ́ ti security meeting àbí fake Federal Executive Council meeting wọ́n jọ máa ṣe ni wọ́n jọ ní plan ni lórí àwọn tó ń gbówó wá fún john leak secret báwo ìjọba ṣe wá fẹ́ mọ̀ta nínú wọn and ìjọba cannot exist in isolation ìrànlọ́wọ́ ni mo rí kó jẹ́ t'Amẹ́ríkà bá wá àmọ́ kó jẹ́ wíwá wọn kó jẹ́ lórí pọ́ help wa kankan máa lọ lò wọ́n padà tó dábàá ní ká fi tìjọba Nàìjíríà ṣe bóyá máa lọ ló ṣe ń lọ yìí Bíbélì ní bí ó ti wà láti kọ́ ṣe ni ó bẹ nísìnyí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ó sì máa rí nígbà gbogbo ayé ànípẹ̀kun tá a bá ṣọ́ra it might be going like that for life bóyá ó máa kú lórí generation tí ó máa bọ́ sórí àwọn ọmọ wa and our children not yet born bí tí wọ́n yẹ ti pè é gbogbo òyìnbó yìí kọ́ lọ́ ṣàánú wa tá a bá ṣọ́ra níbi tá à ń bọ̀rọ̀ àwọn Fúlàní ìlọ yìí ó ti fẹ́ kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ ó ti fẹ́ kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ tó ìjọba èyí tó dáa jù kẹ́ ẹ̀ ṣe tó jẹ́ grade A tó jẹ́ first class ó ní pé for now kẹ́ ẹ̀ tètè gbé gbèsè kẹ́ẹ̀tì gbégbèsè kò ní kálukú ọlọ́múdọ́mú yẹ gbé ẹ wá ṣèyẹn nìyẹn ẹ fún àwọn mílítírì wa lágbára kí wọ́n finish àwọn Fúlàní àwọn Fúlàní tẹ́mi owó yìí agbára mílítírì wa ò ní ká o láwọn tẹ́mi owó yìí tẹ́ kójoojúmọ́ ni wọ́n fi ń wọlé ní millions àwọn ibi tó ń bá wọlé ti wà porous àwọn bọ́dà wa wọ́n ti wà porous wọ́n wọlé bó ṣe wù wọ́n ni wọ́n dẹ̀ dé tìhà ogun mọ́ra ni àwọn kan sọ̀rọ̀ ọjọ́ kan àwọn èèyàn pè mí pé èdè Mali ni wọ́n sọ yìí which means àwọn Fúlàní tó ń ṣe nǹkan yẹn Mali làwọn ti wá tiwọn. Can you imagine? ẹ ṣáàjẹ́ pé gbogbo akúnfàdùà torí pé a tún gbọ́dọ̀ padà sóko ẹrú ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì kò ní bójú mu o wọn ò ní rí kan ká wa o èyí tó dáa jù òdìkáwa Yorùbá ká ti fọ́ọ̀mù kọ́ńtírì tiwa kí irú ẹ̀ tó ṣẹlẹ̀.
ìlà fi mọ bá ilẹ̀kẹ̀ la fi mọ jòjì èdè wa làmì ìdánì mọ́ wà. pẹ̀lú ìgbìmọ̀ tó kéde Yorùbá kó má dohun ìgbàgbé kó má dohun àfisẹ́yìn tí gun fi sọ. ọ̀mọ̀wé Gbénga Fágbọnú ti kó o jáde. dictionary Yorùbá aláwòrán kúnlẹ́kàkì òkun fọ́fọ́ láti ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ dópin ló ṣàtúpalẹ̀ àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá tó ta kókó pẹ̀lú àlàyé lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ látẹnu olùkọ́ àgbà. kò ṣe é mà níní fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá o àgbàlagbà tàbí àwọn ọmọdé ìsẹ̀yìn. àwọn àkójọpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá tó ta kókó tó lé ní ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́tàlá pẹ̀lú àwọn àwòrán tí yóò mú òye ọ̀rọ̀ yéni ní kankan. dictionary Yorùbá ti wà jákèjádò ilé ìtajà àti ilé ìkàwé jákèjádò àgbáńláyé. fẹ̀yìn tẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ rà tàbí tẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ kun lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ janturu. ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní United Kingdom ẹ̀jẹ̀ kò sí ìyáàfin Dorcas Amusan Fagbonu ní 119 Little Hutton Lane Bradford BD5 OHT tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí +447401222557. ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà lórílẹ̀‐èdè Amẹ́ríkà ẹ máa pọ̀ sí ọ̀gbẹ́ni Olúwaṣọ́ṣọ́yà ní 601 Cypress Station TR Unit 510 Austin Texas tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ +175727735552. ẹ̀yin ti Europe ẹ kàn sí ìyáàfin Mary Buckner Eriksbo Pisbo Ostergaard 324244 Angel Gogglebox City ní Sweden tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí +4673832999. ẹ̀yin torílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà ìrọ̀rùn ló bá dé o ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn ẹ máa kàn sí bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣàn tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 08130672361. ẹ̀yin ti ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ẹ pè ọ̀mọ̀wé Victor Taiwo sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 08126923916. kò ṣe é mẹ́ni ní o fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá o.
We must try as much as possible not to look at this topic from a position of emotional maturity. From the position of emotions, but we must display emotional maturity. Thank you so much. So today's topic is 1,000 years of Yoruba geopolitics. The past, the present, and the future. I'm going to be juxtaposing Yoruba reality. I'm going to be juxtaposing Yoruba culture, Yoruba reality, history, civilization, renaissance with the following countries. I'm going to be using the Germans as an example. I'm going to be using the Chinese as an example, if time permits. I'm going to be using the Russians as an example. And I'm going to be using the European Union, European Union, Pax Romania, Greco-Roman civilization as a case study, so that our people can understand their position in the world. Because the problem we currently have in Yoruba land, where it seems that ethnic nations that do not have our numbers, that do not have our strength, that do not have our powers, are seemingly trying to vulturize our identity, vulturize our culture. They won't even want to create another ethnicity called Lagosian. Just the way some people are trying to create another ethnicity called Ilorite. Meaning that they are creating another identity called Ilorins. as if Ilorin is not a Yoruba identity. It is the same, I don't want to call, I'm on here, but it's the same madness we see also in Lagos, where some people are trying to create what they call the Lagosian identity, as if the Lagosian identity does not have anything to do with the Yoruba identity. And this is the way many ethnicities have been erased. This is erased, many identities have been exterminated. And this is the way a lot of people have gone extinct. Once again, this is Oladimeji Bolarinwa, the president of Think Yoruba First organization. By next week, we are going to get better. And we are going to start on time. And now we're already 30 minutes behind schedule. Today's topic, we are going to be discussing the following blocks within Yoruba land. We'll be talking about Ife. We are going to be talking about Owu. We are going to be talking about Oyo. We are going to be talking about Bini. We are going to be talking about Ibadan. And we are going to be talking about the Western region. And we are going to be talking about Lagos. Now, I've given you like 7 blocks we are going to be talking about. These 7 blocks are they played different roles for the past 1,000 years to actually determine modern Yoruba history. It is true that the Yoruba civilization is more than 20,000 years. We have the Iwo-Eleru anthropological and archaeological discovery in Ondo State, in Idori. We also have different artifacts, different excavations that have been done at Ile-Ife and several at Owo, in several places in Yoruba land. But we are going to base, which is more than 1,000 years old. But we are going to base our conversation tonight to that 1,000 years of history. It is the inability of the Yoruba people to understand the geopolitics and this 1,000 years of history that has made it almost impossible for us to be able to have a consensus, for us to be able to speak together as one people in one unity. 1,000 years ago, a powerful civilization was born in a place in West Africa called Ile-Ife. When I mean the creation of 1,000 years, the creation of Yoruba civilization, or let us call it the Ife civilization, because the Ife civilization, no matter your anger against Ile-Ife, no matter your sentiment against Ife, maybe you are Bini, maybe you are, no matter who you are, maybe you are Oyo, maybe you are Ijebu, maybe you are Ugbo, the largest. No matter your own narrative of history, one thing is certain: Ile-Ife is the source of Yoruba civilization. And what is civilization? Civilization is the most advanced form of human culture. Civilization is the most advanced form of human identity. And not all ethnic nations are capable of building civilizations. Now, let's look at Africa currently in 2025. Which civilizations do we have in Africa? Which major civilizations do we have in Africa that has really, really impacted the world, shaped geopolitics within Africa and beyond? In North Africa, what we have is the Arab Islamic civilization. Across the sub-Saharan Africa, what we have is the Afro-Asiatic Islamic civilization. And what do I mean by the Afro-Asiatic Islamic civilization? That is where the Kanuri Islamic civilization comes in. And that is where you also have the Sokoto Caliphate, which is the Fulani Islamic civilization. So these are the civilizations that actually determine sub-Saharan Africa. So this is what we have. Secondly, we also have this, if you look at Southern Africa, there is no civilization, any great civilization in Southern Africa. They were just city-states, sometimes kingdoms, sometimes clans, sometimes Bantu. Just, there's no great civilization in Southern Africa. And what do you have in West Africa? In West Africa, we have different empires. If you look at the empires of old in West Africa, like the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, and the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, firstly we had the Ghana Empire, from the Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, Songhai Empire. Now, the Mali Empire and the Songhai Empire became Islamized, and Islam became the state religion during the time of Askia, during the time of Mansa Musa. So when it comes to are these in civilizations, indigenous African civilization, true and true? The answer is no, because it has been heavily influenced by Islam. Now, there's a difference between talking about civilizations and difference between talking about empires. You can have 4 or 5 empires at the same time, and they are still going to be using the same civilizations. I'm going to give you a good example. If you look at Europe in the medieval times, between the 15th century and the 19th century, and the 20th century, during the time of the Austrian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, you have the German Empire, you have the Russian Empire, you have the British Empire, you also have the French Empire. During the time of these empires, the Spanish Empire, one thing is certain: these empires were built on the Greco-Roman civilization, Christianized Greco-Roman civilization. Later on, when it got to America, and America also was created a Republican empire, terms like Judeo-Christian, Anglo-Saxon civilization came up. So coming back to Yoruba land, what we have across West Africa is nothing but Oduduwa civilization, or we can call it Ife civilization. This is the bitter truth. So it doesn't matter the different ethnonym we want to use. Ife civilization, Kotsojire civilization, Yoruba civilization. But the most common one that is acceptable is Ife civilization, Oduduwa civilization, or Yoruba civilization. So, but because of today's conversation, I'm going to base my conversation based on these 3 important topics, these 3 important ethnonyms. So, Ife, when they say Ife is the source of all Yoruba people, many people have challenged this. That does it mean that people have not been existing in different kingdoms, city-states, both city-states that once existed and city-states that are still existing in Yoruba land? Or is that what they mean? But what actually we mean is that it's like saying that Jerusalem is the spiritual homeland of all the Jews in the world. Now, if you look at the biblical times, not all Jews were living in Jerusalem. In fact, many Jews, even during the time of Jesus, during the time of Joshua, during the time of the biblical times in the Old Testament, many Jews never stepped the foot in Jerusalem. But they still saw Jerusalem as their spiritual capital, because that was the seat of power. It was the seat of their spirituality. It was the seat where everything comes from. It was the center of the world. So that was what Jerusalem was. It's like what Beijing, Nigeria, from time, China also had different capitals, but I'm not going to go in there now. So that's how important Ile-Ife is to the Yoruba people, because Ife was a confederal state. We need to start breaking some things down. The Yoruba civilization was built on confederacy. It was not different from the Athenian Empire. The Athenian Empire was also called the Athenian League, or like the Greek leagues. You see, the Greeks were made up of different tribes, different clans. When I mean the Greeks, those are the ethnic groups that make up current day Greece. They were the people that built the Greek Empire during the time of Alexander the Great. Now, when we even talk about the times of Alexander, the Greek Empire, the Alexander the Great, this empire did not even last up to 200 years. After when Alexander the Great died, he conquered, created an empire, and the empire was destroyed immediately after he died. So the empire did not even, in the real sense of it, the empire did not last 100 years. Yet it is always been romanticized by many scholars in Europe and all over the world, that this empire was very, very great. So you look at this reality, you look at what is happening, and you start asking questions, that there are so many empires within Yoruba land, within the Yoruba civilization, that even lasted 600, 700 years. And to keep an empire lasting up to that level, it requires a level of sophistication and greatness. The Sokoto Caliphate, the biggest and the most powerful empire the Fulanis ever built, did not last up to more than 100 years before it was broken into pieces by the British. The Oyo Empire, Benin was an empire. Benin Empire, Oyo Empire, Ife Empire, many of these empires still lasted between 300, 400, 500 years, some into 600 years. So these empires are very, very great. So it doesn't matter. Maybe you are Oyo, maybe you are Benin, maybe you are Ife. It doesn't matter. Maybe you are Owo. It doesn't matter the Yoruba group or clan that we all belong to. We all have a share of the greatness to claim the heritage and power of this empire. Now, there are so many ethnic nations. In fact, in Africa, I can count with my fingers the number of ethnic nations that ever built one single empire. And if you look at the way the world is built, when you want to look at superpowers, when you want to look at great powers, there is no single great power that has never been an empire. Now, can I start counting it? France, part of the G5, was a superpower, was an empire. Germany was an empire. United Kingdom was an empire. Russia was an empire. China was an empire. United States of America is an empire. So there is no great nation and great power that was not an empire. None. Everybody was an empire. So there is a way. That's why you look at the way the world is structured. If you want to be a great power or a middle power, you have to have a pedigree. You have to have a history. That is why you must understand your history. You must organize your history. You must weaponize your history. You must empower your history so that your history is not used to destroy you. So that you can also know where you are coming from and you are not replaced or absorbed by a successor state. Now, the Yoruba civilization for the past 1,000 years is a continuum. How do you know an everlasting civilization or a great civilization? Empire rises, empire falls. But there is a way civilizations continue to exist. There is a way civilization continue. That is why it is called continuum civilization. Civilization continuum. So, and civilization continuum is that it is like a tree. Different branches, when one branch falls down, another branches shoot up, even though all of them are from the same root. And that root is the Oduduwa civilization that emanated from Ife. Now, I said the Ife civilization, the Ife as an empire state, it can only be, I'm going to give you similarities between Ife and Chinese empire during the days of the Middle Kingdoms. You have to understand that, there are different kinds of empires. And some empires are similar, while some empires are not similar. You have to understand this difference. You have to understand that some empires have different characteristics. The Roman Empire, at the peak of its powers, was different from the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire was different from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was different from the Russian Empire. The British Empire was different from the German, Austro-Hungarian Empire. Very, very different if you look at their characteristics. Even within Mesoamerican history, before colonization and the Spanish wiping out those civilizations, the Inca Empire was different from the Aztec Empire. The Aztec Empire was different from the Comanche Empire. So they are different. So because even though many of them might still have the same traits, might still have the same features, might still have the same characteristics, they are very, very different. Very, very different. So because they are very, very different, you have to understand that you need to understand where everybody is coming from. And there is no empire within the Yoruba Commonwealth, within the Ife Commonwealth, within the Oduduwa Commonwealth that did not have the role that they played in ensuring we have these great people that some people call Yoruba, another people call Olukumi, another people call Kotu Ojire. I don't care the name you call yourself. We all know we are talking about the same people. But we have one opportunity. We can become unified like the Chinese, or we can become balkanized like the Germans. We need to choose our destiny. We are at the crossroad of history as Yoruba people. That is why this topic tonight is extremely important. And I want to bet it with you. Only few people can dare delve into this arena of geopolitics of 1,000 years of continuum of Yoruba civilization. Now, it has been established if there was a confederacy. What do you mean by confederacy? We have the Oduduwa group, we have the Obatala group, and these different other groups, other stakeholders, fighting for who was going to become the ruler of Ife. Ife was a center of philosophy. It was a center of fashion. Go and look at the glass beads, the technology that was being done in Ife. All the great pantheons, when it comes to great people. Now, these great people is people what we now call Orisha. In Orisha, it's not the same thing as gods. The most similar word to Orisha is saints. These are special people that have done great things. In Catholics, within the Catholic Church, in Catholicism, great people, when they are great, they achieve great things. What do? They turn them into saints. They turn them into saints. So that was similar to, and that particular reality did not start. If the Catholics also saw it in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and other Oriental religions. So the Yoruba people also doing it does not mean we borrowed it from the Catholics. This was a global phenomenon for advanced civilizations. So you see people like Ogun, people like Oduduwa, these are great people. So you see Ogun is being credited with, like, he's the god of iron. What did he do? Because of the advancement he brought to iron works. So that was how I went, and that advancement he brought to iron works made the Yoruba people to be able to become an advanced civilization. We were no longer a people that were just using stick, bows, and arrows to be able to go. We left the position of hunter-gatherers. We left the position of primitive people. We were able to use irons, and these irons, we were able to forge tools. We were able to forge tools of wars. We were able to expand and build cities, clear vegetations, conquered unconquered territories. We were able to conquer nature. We were able to produce foods at a very, very large scale. Because for you to be able to have a large city, for you to have a city of 300, 400,000 people, you need to be able to feed them. And because we were able to produce food in excess, in abundance, we were the first people to become urbanized in the whole of West Africa. And that was because of the technological advancement of people like Ogun, That was what people like go. That's why they became saints. Now, that's not where I'm going to. I'm not here to talk about the epistemology or this priesthood, sainthood of Yoruba mythology. So I'm telling you what was happening at Ile-Ife. So I'm not here to also start when people believe, oh, Oduduwa came from Mecca. Oduduwa did not come from Mecca. It's absolute nonsense. To say Oduduwa came from Mecca, it's absolutely nonsense. Oduduwa was a Yoruba man and part of the people that fought. He fought to become the sole ruler. It was true war. If you look at the Obatala people that follow Obatala, you see them always spotted, they have white spots. It was because of, during that war of who was going to become the ruler, the war of who was going to become the ruler and unify the crown. It was Oduduwa that won that battle. So that was how the issue of successor. So when you look at the Yoruba civilization and Oduduwa taking the center stage was not through a tea party. It was through war. So the unification you saw, that was the first unification of the Edekiri people, of the Olukumi people, of the Yoruba people that was done through Oduduwa. It was through war, some through diplomacy. That is why you go to places like and anyway, as we continue, we'll start expanding. So on these talks, but hopefully by next week we'll be able to go into depth because there's a lot of places we need to touch tonight so that we can have an overview. We can now flesh it and expand it to understand where we are coming from and why things are. Why we can understand why this issue of this supremacy nonsense between one king or the other in Yoruba land should not continue. And because we need to understand where we are coming from so that we are not socially engineered against ourselves. Just the way Ukraine and Russia has been socially and geopolitically engineered themselves and they started killing themselves. Just the way the Ibadans and the Ekiti, Jesha, Parapo, were engineered against themselves and they destroyed themselves. Just the way Ibadan and Ijaye was socially engineered against themselves in 1861 and they destroyed another Yoruba superpower. We need to understand that the Yoruba land is a confederal power. So that one is settled. Now, while Ife was expanding, Ife strength, after when Ife became that superpower and Ife Empire was built, because it was an empire state, a lot of people started coming to copy the system, the spirituality of Ife. They started even asking for Oduduwa to send his sons so that they can be ruled. They started sending Oduduwa to send his sons so that they can be ruled. So that was what happened in Ife. And I said there's a lot of similarity between Ife and China. China was an empire who saw itself as the Middle Kingdom. Ife also saw itself as the Middle Kingdom. That's why Ife believed they are the source of creation. They are the source of all civilization. They are the source of all things. That's why you remember this song that Ile-Ife, oh, Loju ti mo wa o. Some people say, oh, that is the third Ile-Ife. Oh, that is the fourth Ile-Ife. Some people say some Ife, you say Ile-Ife, Akanlubebe. Some people say this Ife, those kind of Ife, different Ife. But we know we are going to base our conversation tonight on the 1,000-year history. Because once we go into 1,000-year history, we are going into ungoverned territory. And we want to be able to be academically intelligent. We want to be academically logical. So Ife is the source of civilization. Now, of the Yoruba people. Now, there is also a particular important thing we also have to know. I said if it was the Middle Kingdom. It was not different from China. China believed it was the Middle Kingdom, and it had the mandate of heaven. The same thing Ife was also having, that they have the mandates of the gods, they have the mandates of Olodumare to give crowns, to determine civilization. Those are the way, those are the things, the ideology is not different from the Jews when they said they are God's chosen people. It's not different. Everybody have their way, everybody have something to say in order to give themselves appellation about the greatness of their greatness, what they've achieved. So China was also like that. That's why you see in China, it was from China. China was one that were the people that civilized Vietnam, Thailand, Japan, many of the Southeast Asian countries. They got their civilization from China. Even Mongolia, they got their civilization from China. System of writing, civil spirituality. Even though China also borrowed the spirituality from India. Buddha was an India. Buddha was from India. Buddha was not from China. But what did the Chinese do? The Chinese domesticated Buddha. In anthropology, in history, we call it sinification, because they sinified it. They sinicized it. Sorry, sinicization. Or to make it easy, to make it fun, we can call it Chinesization. Even the word China, Qin, was not even the original name of China. It's, according to some historical sources, it was from Persia that called them Qin, and from Qin it became China. So you can understand that the world has always been a global village. And all this issue of you got your name from this, you got your name, our name was from Hausa, from Fulani, all those nonsense things that people are passing around actually means nothing. Who knows? Who can even go back and say that Korea and Japan, they were civilized by China? The same China, the same Japan, that now came back to colonize China in the late 19th century and the late 20th century in the most brutal way. If not for the Second World War, China, Russia, Japan would have annihilated and destroyed China. So you have to understand that history is a continuum. It is not static. So later on, Ife started becoming weak. It started to decline. Many things can cause empires to decline. It can be due to war. It can be due to economic sabotage. There's no economic power. It can be due to climate change. Food was not doing well. It can be due to biological, due to natural disasters. It can be due to disease outbreak, and everything start collapsing. It can be due to internal wars. So when Ife started winning in power, and Ife had always wanted to control the trade routes towards the Trans-Saharan trade routes, and that was where the real Owu, also another Yoruba power. So Owu then wanted to replace Ife. So there was a tussle, and during this time, before this time, when Owu was emerging, and Owu was becoming another. That's why Owu, when they say Owu Lakoda, because Owu is also an ancient Yoruba superpower that people we don't talk about. And when you start talking about it, because Owu played crucial role in the ethnogenesis of what we call the Yoruba identity and Yoruba power. But Owu should have also become an empire, but could not become an empire. It was cut short. That was why Oromiyan went to go and create that outpost. Oyo was a military outpost, a power broker, a base, same thing as Benin, Ilẹ̀ Ìbínú. Those two axes has always been the threat for the existence of the Yoruba people for the past 1,000 years. Today, you complain about marauders, bandits. Where are they coming from? From that same north across the Niger. Or today, you are complaining about some people coming from across the Niger from the east, trying to come around and start dictating and destroying Yoruba land and calling Yoruba land no man's land. Where are they coming from? They are coming from the east. So it has always been like that. Those two threats. That was why Oromiyan went to create, in order to secure Ife, to secure Yoruba land. He went to create Oyo and went to create Benin. Those two places are military barracks for the Yoruba race. They are the shield. They are protected to protect Yoruba land. The greatest mistake, maybe by that time, we did not have another shield to protect us along the coast. The Ijebu they did well, but we did not have enough shield along the coast because that is where the British came. When we were faced with threats across the east, we played the Benin fought and they protected their lands. When we were confronted with threats from the north, the Oyos, they fought, defeated the Inupes, defeated the Bogus, defeated the Fulanis, defeated the Songhais, they even went to the west to defeat and crush the Ashanti Empire. In fact, they even also regrouped in Ibadan to go and destroy the religious extremists coming from Ilorin that was led by a Fulani warlord. So we need to understand where we are coming from and where we are going. So we have to understand that that Owu. So as I was saying, Owu was trying to absorb Ife, and that is what happens at all times. That's why many of us I love the fact that there is Dawn Commission, because we should not have a situation where Lagos State or Ekiti State or Ogun State will now be competing in a toxic way against Lagos State in order to absorb Lagos State. That was what happened during that time. Owu was trying to absorb Ife, and Ife had to start. Ife was now using Oyo to be able to fight Owu. Later, at a point in time, it was between Oyo and Owu. Ife declined in its economic power. Ife declined in having a proper standing army to be able to defend its territory. Because what happened was, when Oromiyan was going to Oyo and when Oromiyan was going to Benin, he took one of the best soldiers, technocrats, aristocrats, chiefs, courtiers. They were the ones that set up and turned Oyo into an empire, Benin into an empire. So we need to understand that is anybody coming telling you any other history apart from this, we need to stop it. So as at that time, by the 13th, 14th century, towards the 15th century, Ife was no longer the economic, political base anymore. It became the spiritual base. And everybody from Benin, all the way from Benin to Oyo, to Ketu, to Ashanti, believed that Ife must be protected and given that right, because that was the seat of where the ethnogenesis and the formation and the creation of this Oduduwa civilization that has been able to withstand the sands of time. For a civilization to last 1,000 years, for an identity to last 1,000 years, it's not a joke. Even the regional system that we had in Nigeria did not even last 6 years before it got scattered. So 1,000 years, there has been war, pestilence, disease, slavery, all sort of natural and human disaster, even divine disasters. Yet this civilization still continues to stand. So it is a very, very powerful civilization that is worth fighting for, that is worth defending, that is worth celebrating. Oyo defeated Owu, and Oyo became the successor state. When I mean defeated Owu, two people are competing. Two people are competing for a particular place. It's not like one killed another. No. Oyo became the successor state to Ife. And if Oyo became an empire that was greater than Benin Empire, it's the bitter truth. In fact, some people even argue that Benin was not an empire. But I still regard Oyo as an empire. Now, when Oyo became an empire, it expanded the territory of the Yoruba people and expanded it across the Niger, into Niki, into Busa, into Kanji, not those places, area of Kanji, the most places in southern Niger states was under the control of the Alaafin of Oyo. So it's created a powerful base. It's controlled. If you look at the River Niger, it controlled that trade route. It was a gateway into the Arab world. It was Oyo that was controlling that power. Now, after that happened, after so many years, the Nupe people, they rose up and they burnt down Oyo. Now, there is one thing about Oyo people that I want you to know. Because the problem is that many of us we don't even know that within Yoruba land there is diversity. The way an Ekiti man sees things will be different the way an Oku man sees things. The way an Oku man will approach matters will be different from the way an Awori man will approach matter. The Yoruba people are the real definition of unity in diversity. And it's the same for the Christians amongst us. You are going to see the Benjamites, the way they saw things was different from the way people from the tribe of Ephraim were seeing things. People from the Levites, and when you come on, those ones don't know more than going into the tabernacle and serving God. It was not different. It's different from the way people from Gad, the Ashers, were seeing things, or people from Judah were seeing things. So you have to understand that even even in your family house, the way your brother behaves is different from the way your sister behaves. Even amongst twin brothers, twin sisters, it is not possible for them to go and marry the same husband and like the same man and fall in love with the same girl. No matter how much they are similar. The same thing happens within Yoruba land. So Yoruba land is diverse in its own right. Yoruba land is not in quote unquote homogeneous. There is no amongst the Germanic tribes. It's the same. You cannot think the way the barbarians think is different from the way people from Cologne think. The way the people from Cologne behave is different from the way the people from Dresden, Thuringia in Germany behave. You cannot believe that. You cannot be where the culture, the dialect of people from Saxony in Germany is different from the way people from Vienna, who are also Germans, behave. But they have a level of similarity, and these little similarities, we need to understand it and understand where we are coming from. And why do we have these differences? We have these differences because of our different experiences, our neighbors, our interactions, where we've been, where we've gone to, what is our history, what is our pains. Those are the things that actually shapes our identity, that actually shapes our behaviors. So that's the reality that we have on ground. So let's also go forward. We also have this situation So when Nupe people came, that's why I said you have to understand Oyo people. Look, Oyo people believe. Look, there have been close to 5 Oyos. Oyo Ajaka, Oyo Igboho, Oyo Katunga, Oyo different Oyos, Oyo Ago. So Oyo have always been moving capital left, right, and center. And that is one of the greatest, that's how you know a resilient empire. The former capital of England was Winchester. It was called Old England. Now, the capital of England is London. People don't know this. If you know the history of England, you know this. The capital of England was Winchester before. Now it is London. So you can move capitals around. It is for strategic reasons. The former capital in China was like Nanking. Now the capital of China is now Beijing. You have to be able to maneuver. It is normal for you to be able to move your capital. At a point in time when the Roman Empire was balkanized, the most powerful Roman bloc was not Rome. It was Constantinople. Now called Istanbul. Constantinople. Go and read about Roman generals like Belisarius, who saved the Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire from collapsing after the Nika revolt. So you have to understand that doesn't make sense to an Oyo man. An Oyo man will tell you that does not make sense. Because within 1,000 years, Oyo people has changed their capital and location 5 times. So in the next 200 years, Oyo tó wà dẹ́n wò yẹn lọ́yọ̀ọ́ tó ń bẹ ní Oyo state yẹn might be to next year, it might be in Togo land or Yoruba land. That is who Oyo people are. They found a way that they can be able to take their capital around because they are always at war. They are always at war. That was why Atiba did what he did, to take the Oyo, decentralized power, and allow his warlords to have freedom, like Timi, like Shoun, like Ibadan, the Ibadans, like Ijaye, Kurumi. That was what he did. That was what Oyo Empire did. The Atiba did. He decentralized power for his own survival because he didn't want to go to war anymore. Because he prioritized survival. Because he knew he was a target to be destroyed by both internal and external enemies. And he now located and situated Oyo within the tropical forest. For the first time in close to 1,000 years of Oyo history, Oyo has always been a savannah power. Oyo has always been a power that ruled through power, through military power. Oyo does not understand diplomacy. Oyo understands hard power. The reality of the Oyos is not different from the reality of the Russians because of how they were formed. So I've been able to tell you that. Now, don't not forget, now this is where Benin comes into play. Don't forget I'm talking about geopolitics. When the Nupe people sacked Oyo, they sacked Oyo and Oyo was relocated to Oyo Igboho. Do you know what happened? Nupe were now expanding and terrorizing the entire northern Yoruba land. And they were raiding the Ekiti country. They were even raiding the Akokos. It was the Benis that stood up during that time and was now protecting and serving as the shield of Yoruba land. This history, people don't talk about it, but it's a bitter truth. That was the incursion of Benin into places like Ado, into places like Akure, into places like Owo, into places like the Akokos. That is why this incursion was what created Akoko Edos and created a mismatch between the Akoko people and the Edroid people. And that's why there's a confusion today. And some people are saying, oh, it is because of the missionaries that are giving our children, that gave our parents Yoruba. It's not true. It is because it is a mixture of people that migrated from Ife and people that are Edoid. That's why you have Akoko Edos. And unfortunately, they've now been placed in Edo State. If they were in Ondo State or Ekiti State, we're not even going to have this conversation at all. Because it would have been, they would have probably they would have fully identified as Yoruba. That's why some people said that identity sometimes is fluid. For some people, it's fluid, especially people that live in the periphery. So that's how Oyo now. Oyo was also a confederacy. Oyo was not Oromiyan ló ṣe no. Oyo was a confederacy. Now, what do you mean by what do I call Oyo as a confederacy? When Oromiyan was also living Ife, he was accompanied by also princes like the Olugbo, who was also a brother to half-brother to Oromiyan. He was also accompanied by Aresa. Those are all princes from Ife. Those are Oduduwa princes. They were the people, the warriors, the warlords, the chiefs, the intellectuals that came together to create Oyo. So it was these confederal city-states where Alaafin was the supreme leader. And you also have people like the Okere of Shaki, the Asheyin. All these people it was a confederacy. It was a country, it was a confederacy. It was what was perfected in Ife that they took to create the Oyo Empire. Now later on, Oyo Empire started expanding. And as Oyo Empire became cosmopolitan, it absorbed millions of Baribas, millions of Hausas, millions of Fulanis, millions of Nupes. And they were all Yorubanized. Oyo was a colonizing power. Oyo is not just Oyo. That Oyo identity was forged by the Alaafin. There is no Oyo without the Alaafin. He created it. It's like saying you call yourself Bini, and you are saying you don't give a damn about the Oba of Bini. No. There was no Bini. What you had was Igodomigodo. Bini is an hybrid between Edo and Yoruba. The Bini identity is an hybrid between the Edoid, the Yoruba people and the Edoid people. That was what created Bini. Even Eweka or Wamika, the crown prince that took over from Oromiyan, Odede, Aroli Odua, was that great hunter, that great adventurer, the greatest empire builder I've ever seen in Africa. Full respect. That was how he was able to create. That was how they were able to create the Bini identity. Because Oromiyan also married a Bini an Igodomigodo native. Some people call it a princess. And that was how they created, she gave birth to Owamika. And Owamika, corrupted to Eweka, has always maintained that kingship to this current moment. And part of the entourage, the prince from Ife, that followed Oba of Bini, that followed Oromiyan to go to that war to expand the territory, the Yoruba territory, let me use it, into that axis, was the current descendant of the Oba of Use. The Elawure of Use was the senior brother to Oromiyan. But he knew, in Oromiyan, the senior, it was not on seniority. It was on power. It was on hard power. And Oromiyan was who he said he was. So that is why you see Use was placed around that Okada. You see that area, Okada River. Or that Okada, where you have Igminodo University. It's a Yoruba territory. It's a Yoruba axis. It means okay, Ada. That is the meaning. That is the meaning of Okada. That's why you have a lot of Yoruba speakers there. A lot of Yoruba speakers there are not immigrants, because that place has always been, that was the place where migration happened. So it was when they got to Benin, and they got to Godomigodo, and they created Benin, and a lot of the princes. That's why I said Elaure of Use was an Oduduwa prince. That's why they still speak Yoruba till date. And they created another identity, which is a Yoruba group, the Use group. So the Use group was created by the Elaure of Use. So let's go back into the Oyo axis. So I've said that by the 15th century, after Onupe sacked Oyo, so I've told you the orientation. You need to know how the Ife are thinking, how are the Benin thinking, how are the Oyo thinking.
Agede